The competition will be held on Friday and Saturday using the online Zoom platform. Please make sure that prior to the dates of the competition that you are scheduled to Bailiff, that you have the ability to access Zoom on the device that you plan to use for the competition. You'll be sent a Zoom link for the rounds that you're scheduled for via email prior to the competition. Please make sure that you join the Zoom meeting 20 to 30 minutes prior to the start of the round. This ensures that we have enough time to make sure all of the bailiffs that are scheduled are in attendance, and gives you guys the opportunity to ask any last-minute questions that you might have. You all are essential to the success of this competition. If there's any reason that you're unable to attend your scheduled argument, please let me know immediately so that I can let our backup bailiffs know. In a moot court competition, there are 2 teams comprised of 2 competitors, and they present oral arguments to a panel of 2 to 3 judges. In this competition, our judges panel is comprised of volunteer attorneys, judges, and magistrates. One team will present arguments on behalf of one party to the mock lawsuit, and the other team will present arguments on behalf of the opposing party, just like what would happen in a real oral argument. The moot court judges will rate the competitors based on their advocacy skills and the quality of their arguments. Your role in this competition is to call the court to order to start the oral argument, be present in the hearing rooms to time the competitors' arguments, and ensure the judges' ballots are completed properly. Prior to logging onto Zoom on the day of the competition, you'll need to ensure that you have a stopwatch or stopwatch app. You can use something on your phone or smartwatch, or if you don't have access to a stopwatch or the ability to get a stopwatch app, please contact me and I will get a stopwatch to you prior to the competition. You'll also need to make sure that you can access your bailiff worksheet for the round and that you have printed out the time cards to hold up during the competition. The bailiff worksheet and pre-printed time cards will be sent to you in an email along with instructions prior to the competition. And these resources and any resources that we have for you as bailiffs will also be on the bailiff resource website. But you'll also be getting everything in an email from me as well. And it goes without saying, but you need to review all emails from me or any moot court board individuals and all the attached documents to those emails prior to the date of the competition. The bailiff worksheet, which we'll go over towards the end of this presentation, will need to be emailed to the competition coordinator immediately after the argument. So you can fill that out electronically or you can print it out and fill it out by hand. If you do print it out, please keep in mind that you will still need to email the form to the competition coordinator immediately after the argument. So you'll need to either write very clearly and take a very clear picture for upload, or be able to input that handwritten information into a digital format. You'll also need to print the time cards in order to be able to hold them up on the screen at the appropriate intervals. So when you arrive on Zoom, you'll be in one main room with your competition coordinator, and then you'll be placed into breakout rooms. Once you're in the breakout room, you'll need to change your screen name to read Bailiff. And you do this on Zoom just by right-clicking on your display name, hitting Edit Name, and then you'll type in Bailiff. After you're placed in the breakout room, the competitors for both teams will be placed in the room with you. Coaches of the teams can join as well, but you should ensure that their cameras are off and that they are muted once they enter the breakout room. There's a petitioner team with 2 speaking students and a respondent team with 2 speaking students. There might be 3 students per team, but any student who is not speaking in the competition needs to have their camera off and needs to be muted. You'll need to ask the competitors their names and have them identify which one will be arguing first and which will be arguing second. You'll write the names of the competitors on your bailiff worksheet in the order that they're arguing. Then you'll instruct the competitors to change their screen name to identify their team number, what side they're arguing, what order they're arguing in, and their first and last name. So for example, if I'm on the petitioner's team for Team 10 and I'm arguing first, my screen name would be 10-P1 and then my name. Each team will get 30 minutes total for their 2 speakers, and the team can divide up that time however they see fit, but no speaker can talk for longer than 17 total minutes. The petitioner team also has the option to present a rebuttal argument after both sides present their main arguments. This rebuttal can last for no more than 5 minutes and will be included in the entire 30-minute allotment for that team for that round. So after you get their names and their orders down, you'll ask them how they're allocating their speaking time, and you'll make sure that you ask the petitioner team who's doing the rebuttal and for how long. You'll record the time requested by each speaker on their bailiff worksheet next to their name. And it is your job to make sure that the competitors allocate their time correctly. So the major rules to remember is that total speaking time should add up to 30 minutes, and no single competitor can speak longer than 17 minutes. Once you've completed the information about the participants and their speaking times on the worksheet, and you've ensured that the time is allocated correctly and each participant has labeled their name correctly, you'll let the participants know that the judges will now be brought into the room. So you'll send a message to your competition coordinator through the chat and say that your room's ready for the judges. And on Zoom, in the chat feature, if you click chat, it automatically sends to everyone. So if you click everyone, you'll be able to scroll down and find your competition coordinator's name, and you can send a message to them privately so that not everybody gets the message. It will either be myself as a competition coordinator for your link, Jennifer Goldson, or Doug Althauser. Once the judges arrive, you'll record the names of the judges on your bailiff worksheet. And there will be either 2 or 3 judges per argument, and there will always be a chief justice, and then at least one other or normal judge. If they haven't designated in their name who the chief justice is, just make sure you ask so you can write that correctly on your sheet and request that they change their name to denote that they are the presiding or chief justice. After the judges enter the room and you've recorded their names on the worksheet, make sure that everybody is ready, and then you'll read the call of the court, which is located at the top of your bailiff worksheet. Once you read the call of the court, the arguments will begin. And as soon as that first speaker starts their presentation, start your stopwatch and immediately mute your microphone. During the speaker's argument, you'll hold up time cards indicating how much time the speaker has left to argue. And this is based on the time that the specific speaker allotted at the beginning of the round. So, for example, if first petitioner reserved 13 minutes for their initial presentation, the time card for the initial argument would be held up when your stopwatch reached the following times. So you'd hold 10 minutes up after 3 minutes had elapsed, 5 minutes up after 8 minutes had elapsed, and so on. While the speakers must include the rebuttal time as part of the 30 minutes allotted for the entire team's argument, the rebuttal time is treated separately for purposes of the time cards. So for example, if second petitioner reserved 15 minutes for his initial argument and 2 minutes for the rebuttal, the time card for the initial argument would be held up as follows. So after 5 minutes had elapsed, you would hold up the 10. After 10, you would hold up the 5, and so on. For the rebuttal, if he had reserved 2 minutes, you would just have the 1 minute sign after 1 minute had elapsed, and then the stop sign after 2. Make sure that you hold the cards up to the camera so that the speaker and judges can see the cards. Keep each card up long enough to permit the speaker and the judges to see it. At the end of the speaker's reserved time, hold up the stop card. Do not speak. This will ensure that the judges see that the time is done. If the speaker continues to talk after you hold up the card, do not speak and leave it up to the judge to determine whether or not the speaker can wrap up their argument or must stop. Sometimes the judges will permit speakers to continue. Make sure that you continue to hold the stop card up until the speaker is done speaking, and let your stopwatch run. Only stop the stopwatch and put the stop sign down when the speakers have actually finished their argument. The additional time is not deducted from a team's total 30-minute allocation, but the total time that they spoke, even if it was overtime, is listed on the bailiff worksheet. If the speaker finishes and still has time remaining in his argument, stop the stopwatch when the speaker has clearly finished his argument. Do not add the remaining time to the other team's speaker, nor to the rebuttal time unless the judges specifically direct you to do so. At the end of each speaker's argument, record the actual length of time that the speaker argued on your bailiff worksheet. For example, if first petitioner reserved 13 minutes but only spoke for 11, you would record the stop time as 11. Stop time should be the actual time that the argument stopped, even if it is more or less than the requested allotment. And you'll just repeat the same process for every speaker, including the rebuttal argument. All right, so a note about protests before we look at the bailiff worksheet, the bailiff resource website. Protests are a claim from one team against another that there's been some sort of violation of the rules of the competition. All protests are considered waived unless the protest is brought to the attention of the bailiff prior to the beginning of the judge's critiques during the round. If a team has a protest, you will immediately send a private Zoom chat to your competition coordinator, notifying them that there is a protest and which team is protesting. Then the coordinator will work with the teams in a breakout room and report back prior to the judge's critiques. If there are no protests, then you'll proceed to the judge's critique as normal. Okay. So before we finish up this presentation, let's look at some of these resources. So this is the bailiff training website that you guys have been linked to in a previous email, and I'll make sure that I send out again as we get closer to the competition. But on this website, you'll have the bailiff training video, the bailiff training PowerPoint, a bailiff worksheet. So you can either print this out or fill it out online. This is your call of the court up here. So you'll say this to start the competition. And the justices and chief justice will be listed here. So you'll say this whole portion to start off the argument. You'll list the competitors' names on their teams in the order that they plan to speak in here. The time allotted here. The start time will be listed here. And this will be completed for you, as they will all just be zeros. And then the end time is going to be how long they actually ended up speaking for. So you'll just record here exactly what your stopwatch says. The time card cheat sheet is a worksheet that you can fill out just to help you with timing. So for each individual competitor, they'll be able to write in, based off the time they allotted themselves, when you should be holding up each of the cards. So it's just easier for you to glance at. And so that you don't have to do any math. If you click on the cheat sheet, time card cheat sheet guide, you'll get to this. And this just has a breakdown for each of the possible time allotments and when you should hold up each of the cards. So you can just transfer that information onto your competition specific cheat sheet if that's helpful for you. And then the time card set is just this. It's got a 10, a 5, a 3, a 1, and a stop. So you'll need to print those out prior to the competition so that you can physically hold them up in front of the camera. All right. Oops. Okay. So now that you've seen what you have to do during the course of the argument, after the argument, once the competitors have finished their arguments, in the rebuttal, advise them that they need to leave the breakout room, but not the Zoom meeting. So most people should be familiar with this, but if you hit the leave meeting button in the corner, it'll give you the option to leave the breakout room or leave meeting. Have them select leave breakout room. So they'll just return to that main room that you started in and hang out with the competition coordinator. Before the competitors leave, let them know that they'll be able to return to the breakout room to receive their critique from the judges after the judges have completed their ballots. So you'll hang out with the judges in the breakout room, and you'll let them know, or they'll let you know when they've finished scoring their ballots and have submitted their Google Forms. and you'll let your competition coordinator know if your judges are having any issues with the ballots that you can't help them solve. Once the judges have let you know that they finished submitting their ballots, send a message to your competition coordinator indicating all ballots for your argument have been submitted. Once your competition coordinator verifies the receipt of these ballots, then they will place the competitor back into the breakout room to receive the feedback from the judges. And once the competitors are back in the room, you'll just leave. You will not stay for the critique. So go ahead and return to the main room with your competition coordinator, but you will not stay in the room for the critique. Make sure that after you leave the room and you're back in that main Zoom room, that you make sure your bailiff worksheet is filled out completely and correctly, and then you'll email it to mootcourt@law.capital.edu. Do not mail it to me, mail it to this email address, please. I will remind you, or your competition coordinator will remind you when you've returned to the main room, but just have this process in mind for the day of the competition. And that's it. So just a reminder that you will be receiving an email with a link to the website for the bailiff resources, and that should be bookmarked and saved so that you can reference it up until the end of the competition. And we also just ask that you arrive 20 to 30 minutes prior to the actual start of the round, so that we're able to ensure that everybody is there as scheduled and we don't have to make any last minute arrangements. But like I said, it also gives you guys the opportunity to ask some of those last minute questions that you might have. But that is all that I have for you. We really sincerely thank you guys. I know that the File Law staff is so grateful for your help for this competition, and the competitors and the teams really should be as well, because we really couldn't do this without you. So thank you guys for volunteering your time and being so gracious in doing that. And we're excited for competition day.